Keegan, I wonder if there's a way for us to tell when people get on.
Yeah, top left corner.
Okay. How many people do we have on? Do we have anyone on yet?
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah, it's early. Another minute or so.
Okay, wait, you said in the top left corner?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, well, welcome everybody. We're still kind of waiting for people to jump on. We're super excited to talk to you guys today about marketing with FQHCs, and we're super lucky to have our expert here today with us. So maybe we'll wait like 10 more seconds to have people jump on.
Sounds good.
While we're waiting, I'll just introduce myself. I am Ashley Allen, and I'm going to be moderating this webinar today. So I think we can go ahead and introduce Keegan now.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. My name's Keegan Yuhl. I'm on the sales side of things here at Social Climb, but gained a lot of experience in my relationships with the federally qualified health centers across the country.
Awesome. Yeah. So Keegan Yuhl, as you can see, is an expert in FQHC marketing. So he has connected with 75 plus FQHCs, and through these connections, he's gained a lot of insight into, the challenges that come with marketing for an FQHC. And we are lucky enough to have him share those insights with us today. So we're super excited to have him here. So Keegan, I would like to start out with a question about what's going on in the market today with FQHCs as far as marketing.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think an important anecdote of how we even got into this, I had the privilege of working with one of the original FQHCs throughout a couple stops in my career. Finally, when we brought them on board to Social Climb, I got to really dive in with their executive team and learn a lot more about this, from a public perspective, industry within the industry, right? Because it's just so different. So we really got to dive in and got to realize, a really great opportunity for Social Climb to help serve the FQHC market. But as far as trends go, I mean, from a marketing perspective, a lot of community events is very, very common. Traditional marketing efforts, newspaper, radio, depends on how advanced, some FQHCs are obviously more advanced than others, but, a lot of times it's nothing at all. And that's various reasons and resources and whatnot. So it can be a little bit of a mixed bag, but, uniform wise, it's a lot of community events and traditional efforts is kind of the trend I see.
That's interesting. Yeah. So I'd like to hear more about, the difficulties that are specific to FQHCs. It sounds like FQHCs are pretty unique.
Mhm.
And from what I know, they have challenges that are specific to their industry rather than just healthcare marketing challenges. So what are some of the difficulties, that you see that are specific to FQHCs when it comes to marketing?
Yeah. And again, not everything is across the board for every single one, but generally speaking, there's the biggest issue or hurdle that I come across is a negative stigma that organically comes with being an FQHC. Um, People in the community just assume, oh, they just provide, cheap healthcare, or they don't have as good of providers as, the local hospital or a local, academic medical center. That's the big one. And then of course there's the, typically, lack of budget, lack of resources, people wearing many hats, struggling with acquiring certain patient types that they want. But all of that kind of circles back to the same, three core issues: the stigma, the budget, and the resources.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. So all of those challenges, they sound, really specific to FQHCs, which I would imagine makes it hard for, FQHCs to find resources and solutions because they're so specific to them. So I want to get your thoughts on, how FQHCs can overcome some of these challenges.
Yeah, great question.
So yeah, let's start with stigmas. I was
Okay.
really interested by that point. So
Yeah.
you said that there's a stigma that comes with being an FQHC. So how can an FQHC overcome that?
Yeah. We've seen enough data, we've seen enough tracking, we've seen enough difference in deployed tactics. I think ultimately it comes down to foundational marketing really begins with a cost-effective and efficient tool such as reputation management. It's bottom of the funnel, it's organic search, it's people actively looking for care, and eliminating that stigma oftentimes comes from the experience of what your patients have had. A lot of people look at that online, right? So when you're a prospective patient looking for care, you're going to go to Google and you're going to type in, best primary care doc near me. And making sure that you're ranking, you're visible, and you're reputable is very cost effective and efficient. And it really does help eliminate the stigma once the word is out that, hey, they do provide really, really good, strong care.
Yeah, so help me understand what reputation management includes exactly. So you said ranking and search. Can you
Yeah.
help me understand that?
Yeah, so obviously reputation management at its core is managing, your listings across the internet, generating reviews, leveraging patients to help you do that, which ultimately is a patient acquisition tactic. If done well, using, whether it's in-house strategies or a solution like Social Climb, can be very, very highly effective. We like I mentioned, we've tracked enough of this data to really understand that the cost for acquisition is extremely low if done well.
Okay, good to know. Okay, so you mentioned also not being able to grow specific departments as an FQHC. So if you have growth stalling in certain departments within your organization, what's something that an FQHC can do to overcome that?
Yeah, this is definitely a struggle that I hear a lot in the market. Quite commonly, FQHCs struggle or aspire to grow, their mental health and primary care service lines. Those are the two. Dental's usually, at least, again, speaking generally, dental's usually in a good position. It's much more of a transactional type of service line. But primary care, mental health, of course, they're looking to grow that. There are tools in the market. I mean, you can even go the traditional route, go down to the post office and, buy a list of residents, get your messaging, get your services out there. Or, you could leverage more strategic approaches and targeted patient acquisition tactics, like predictive modeling or, just data crunching of internal data. There's some tactics out there, but ultimately, if it's leveraged with good messaging, you can really support those service lines.
Awesome. So I was kind of wondering about, you said targeted. So is it possible to target patients in your area who need specific types of care? Is that something that's possible in healthcare?
Absolutely. Using a HIPAA compliant,
Yeah.
infrastructure or engineering behind the scenes, yes, you can actually target patients, whether it be, people that are likeliest to have a certain type of insurance, people that are likeliest to have, health risk issues. Social Climb has built this solution in-house, and it's been fantastic for a lot of our clients to really help balance, patients types, payer mixes, and ultimately get in front of the right people in a much more economical way.
Yeah, that's good to know. I know that HIPAA compliance is probably going to be the first thought that pops into everyone's head.
Yeah.
So, I'm glad that you mentioned that it's possible to do it in a HIPAA compliant way. And then, we talked about, you mentioned growing in your market can be kind of difficult for FQHC. So how would you recommend that an FQHC scale in their market?
I think it kind of couples with what I had just answered. Obviously, strategic targeting, building organic reputation, they're great ways to start due to the impact that it can have on balancing your patient payer mix, staying competitive in certain markets. A lot of FQHCs can be in rural communities. Sometimes they're the only option, but a lot of times they're not. And getting, letting people know what you have to offer. You're providing great care. You're held to a federal standard. I think there's a lot there that you can leverage to your advantage. But I think starting with that is a great point to jump off of.
Yeah, I was wondering, you talk about these different marketing tactics. How will an FQHC know if, their marketing tactics are working? How do they know if they're bringing in patients?
Yeah, a lot of tools out there that can help track. You should be doing call tracking if you're doing print. You should do your best with click tracking. Sometimes it can be a little tricky with HIPAA compliance and PHI laws, but ultimately there are ways that you should be tracking every single thing that you're doing. Otherwise, you're just guessing. Your fingers crossed, hoping that it works.
Yes.
And this isn't even, I wouldn't even say this is specific to FQHCs. I'd say this is specific to healthcare. Healthcare tracking can be challenging. Team size, resources, budgets, starts to dilute that a little bit, but ultimately you should be tracking everything you're doing.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Thank you. So now that we've talked about the challenges in the market, I kind of want to hear your perspective on the successes. So what have you seen as far as things that are working for FQHCs?
Yeah, great question. I think it depends because, some FQHCs, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, are super advanced, super progressive, super aggressive with their marketing. Those tend to be obviously more successful. I will say there's one key thing that I really notice in the market. It's hiring great staff, which I know isn't necessarily directly related to marketing, but a lot of these survey data that or the data from surveys that a lot of these FQHCs have to submit for their HRSA audits or even just general patient SAT surveys, they're getting really, really great feedback. So how do you leverage that survey data in your marketing strategy is super important. Being able to advertise that data, whether website, GBPs, you name it, but also recognizing that you have an opportunity there because the data is so good. When you ask someone and proactively ask someone, leverage that in your marketing strategy. And some groups have done that very well. Some groups haven't.
Yeah, that's really great information. The survey thing, it's interesting because it seems like maybe a lot of these organizations have that data just sitting there waiting to be leveraged in a marketing manner, and they haven't necessarily thought of it. So I love that tip. And then for our final question today, I actually want to know, what is your number one tip for an FQHC that's looking to kick off their marketing?
Yeah. I'll always go back to, at its foundation, reputation management is by and large the most cost-effective and efficient thing you can deploy. It's automated, doesn't require a lot of resources. The patient acquisition cost, as terms from average patient value versus the cost to acquire patients organically, is significantly more effective. A lot of groups that we've talked to on our side of the fence have obviously recognized that, seen really great high returns on their investments. And ultimately that's the starting point. I would hammer that to anybody I ever talk to. I'd even say in healthcare in general, but ultimately if you have a really good reputation, now your community events, your digital ads, your traditional ads, all of that becomes strategically more powerful because, again, it's like the same concept. If I see a digital ad, right? Maybe I'm not ready to convert. Maybe it's just kind of a reminder, but then, a few days later, I'm going back to Google. I'm going to type in what I saw. And if you look stellar, the conversion rate just goes a lot higher.
Awesome. That's a great answer. So if I were to start managing my reputation today, what is the first step for starting to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can kind of do, in-house, or you can use a solution like Social Climb. But the first thing you should do is make sure you get your listings, claim them, make sure you built ones for providers. In healthcare, it is significantly more impactful if you have both provider and location listings. Once you get that really set up, then I do believe leveraging a solution to automate the process of review invitations, but also doing it in a customized way that makes sense with your cadence for surveys, for patient types, setting rules in place, I think will ultimately yield a much higher return. Doing it in-house can be a struggle. We've had plenty of FQHCs try to do it in-house, but ultimately they end up needing to automate it because it can be difficult.
Yeah, it sounds like, from what I understand, if you have listings, you're going to have a listing for each doctor. Is that right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that sounds like it can be kind of challenging to manage, but also super important from what you're saying. Super
Yes,
cost effective.
absolutely.
Okay, well, Keegan, I want to thank you so much for being here and for answering those questions. We would like to take any questions from the audience now, from anyone watching. Okay, let's see. We have some coming in. Okay, what strategies have you found most successful in promoting FQHC services, and increasing patient engagement?
Good question. I mean, from our perspective, obviously, I can only speak to what Social Climb sees as far as, data in-house, but definitely the predictive targeting has been very, very effective. Being able to strategically target the patients you want, it's as simple as, instead of going to the post office and buying, a resident list of 50,000 people, then you're going to a print shop, then you're going back to the post office to post it, stamp it, ship it, do that whole process. Why not buy a list of 5,000 people that actually are likeliest to need your type of care? Now, not only are you able to save money, but you're also able to coordinate your message to match what you're trying to say and do and provide to your community.
Yeah, so you're talking about like a direct mail campaign. Are you talking about postcards, I'm assuming?
Yeah, postcards or
Okay.
even display ads, on social media.
Okay.
Some FQHCs have shifted completely to digital. Totally great. Supporting that is definitely an option. That's just the strategy that I would implore people to go with.
Yeah. Okay, next question. How can you actually do most of this stuff when everything is protected by HIPAA? So, obviously, had the same thought when I heard what you were saying.
Ultimately, it comes down to having a HIPAA compliant solution in place
Okay.
that's secure, that's safe, your data is safe. Without that, you can't really do anything, to be honest.
Yeah.
So you definitely need to be housing data securely. Yeah, that's how I'd answer that.
Awesome. Okay, we have one final question from the audience. Because of limited budgets in an FQHC, are there more cost-effective ways of marketing and changing perception in the market? And I'm going to guess that you'd probably say reputation, but I'll let you take this one.
Reputation. It's hands down the very first thing. If you think of a funnel, it kind of looks like this, and at the top you've got your demand creation. So that's radio, billboards, ads, mailers, display ads. You've got a bunch of things that stay up here. A lot of groups tend to skip the part that's at the foundation, which is your reputation.
Okay.
Because that funnel is what drives people down, right? And then they end up to schedule an appointment, to get directions to your clinic. One way or another, they're typically going to end up on Google. So a lot of groups have skipped that and started up here, where I'd actually argue, reverse your budget, start here, get this really corrected, and then everything else becomes a lot stronger. So that's the approach I'd recommend.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you. I know I end up on Google when I'm looking for a doctor, so I can personally attest to that as a patient.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if we don't have any more questions, I just want to thank you, Keegan, for being on here. And I also want to thank all of our attendees. As a special thank you, actually, for everyone who is on this webinar, we are offering a free predictive patient targeting report. So this report basically will show you patients in your area who need high value procedures, but also have the form of insurance that your organization wants more of. So this can be Medicare, Medicaid, self-pay, commercial insurance, anything else basically. And then on top of that, Social Climb is offering you $5,000 in predictive credits to use towards sending an ad to these potential patients that are identified in your report. So, you can use this credit to send a postcard, send a digital ad, whatever you want to those patients that are identified in your area that will need your care and have the type of insurance that you want. So if you want to claim this offer, I am about to drop a link in the chat. And if you go ahead and open up the chat and click the link and fill out the information, you can redeem those credits and your report. So I'll give people a second to do that. Keegan, did you want to speak?
I think it's an awesome opportunity for people to really get their hands on this, right? Reach out to us. We're happy to walk you through and build a model or two together, and identify, discuss, what you're looking to accomplish and what, your ultimate goal is. And, you can choose if you want to do social digital ads, or if you prefer mailers, we have our recommendations on how to deploy those, but ultimately it's a great opportunity to get a taste of it for sure.
Awesome. Okay. Well, that's all we have for you guys today. Thank you so much for joining, and, don't forget to redeem your credits and your report, and we'll see you guys soon. Thanks, Keegan.
Thank you.